All right, you may be researching your Medicare options and come across things that scare you away from an Advantage plan because they say once you go on an Advantage plan, you can never get back to original Medicare and a supplement plan. This isn't entirely true. There are several ways that you can, ranging from incredibly easy to nearly impossible. So let's talk about them. All right, if you've seen our channel in the past, you know that we do not push Advantage plans over supplement plans. This is strictly an educational video that talks about how to go from one to the other. If you're new to the channel, we don't push Advantage plans over supplement plans. Highly recommend that you go watch the hours of videos that we have that talk about the pros and cons of Advantage plans. But this specific video is talking about switching from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan. The big red flag with moving from Advantage plans to supplement plans revolves around medical underwriting. In general, if you don't get a supplement plan when you first go on Medicare and instead you choose to get an Advantage plan, should you want to go back to original Medicare and a supplement plan, you could face medical underwriting. The company offering the supplement plan will ask you questions about your health, and if you have poor health, you can either be denied completely and unable to get a supplement plan, or you could be charged much higher premiums than you would have had you chosen to get a supplement plan in the first place. So here are 5 of the more common ways to switch from Advantage plans to supplement plans that are super easy. There are others, and we have a link in the description, but I'll go over the more common situations that we see. After these 5, I'll also go over the not so easy ways to switch. Now the first is called your trial right, which is a 1-year time period to test it out. If you take Medicare at age 65 and you choose to go with a Medicare Advantage plan first, you have 1 year to test it out and figure out if you want to keep it. Again, this is called your trial right. If at any time during that year you want to go back to original Medicare and get a supplement plan, you may do so, and you will not need to be medically underwritten. You are guaranteed to be issued your supplement plan. This one is super easy. If you go on Medicare for the first time after age 65, let's say you're 67 and that's when you go on Medicare for the first time, if you get an Advantage plan first, you do not have this same year period. This applies only if you choose an Advantage plan during your initial enrollment period at age 65. All right, the second way to go from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan is similar but a little bit different. If you take original Medicare and a supplement plan when you first go on Medicare, regardless of what age you were when you took it, you can go from a supplement plan to an Advantage plan. Easy peasy. And the first time you do this, you make that switch from supplement plan to Advantage plan, you have 1 year to try out that Advantage plan and switch back with no medical questions and a guaranteed issue, if you so choose. Again, this is your trial right, and it is easy to do. Let's say that you started with a supplement plan, you went to an Advantage plan, and then you switched back to a supplement plan within that year, and then later you wanted to go back to an Advantage plan. You no longer have that trial right. It's only that first time that you make that switch, not the second or subsequent switching opportunity. All right, the third way to switch from Advantage to supplement would be if your Advantage plan is removed from your service area. This can happen a couple of different ways. Now, certain insurance companies will offer an Advantage plan in specific areas. Remember that Advantage plans are zip code specific. Well, sometimes those insurance companies decide that they no longer want to be in that area anymore, and they pull their plan out of that area. But you live in that area and now your plan is gone. If this is the case, you can sign up for a supplement plan and have guaranteed issue. You could also choose to go with another Advantage plan if you want, or again, you can go over to the supplement plan. Super easy. The second way that plans have been removed from service areas is through bankruptcy or fraud. If the insurance company offering the plan gets shut down for either of these two reasons, similar to the logic of the previous scenario, you no longer have a plan and you can switch to another Advantage plan, or you can go back to original Medicare and a supplement plan with no medical underwriting. All right, the fourth way to switch from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan is to move. I mentioned it in the previous point, but Advantage plans are zip code dependent. And if you move outside of your plan's coverage area, you have a special election period where you can either pick up a different Advantage plan or move on to original Medicare and a supplement plan, again, with no medical underwriting. Okay, the fifth and final super easy way to switch that we'll talk about is if you live in one of the 3 states that allow you to switch more easily. If you live in New York or Connecticut, supplement plans are guaranteed to issue year-round. If you live in Massachusetts, there is a 2-month window every year between February and March where you are guaranteed issue a supplement plan. There are several other states that have rules around switching supplement plans, but those are more for switching from a supplement plan to another supplement plan, and that's for a different video. So those are the 5 ways that switching from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan is possible. And not only is it possible, it's easy to do with no medical underwriting. So if you hear people say that it is impossible to go back to original Medicare and a supplement plan, once you choose an Advantage plan, you can either correct them or you can nod your head politely knowing that it isn't entirely accurate. Okay, now let's move to the more difficult way to go from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan, and that is to complete medical underwriting. If none of the previous 5 situations apply to you, you can always go through medical underwriting. They ask you medical questions about your health, your medications, your conditions, surgeries, and other basic health information. If you are healthy, you can get approved. We see it happen all the time. It just takes a little bit more effort than the 5 previous scenarios that we talked about. Where it becomes challenging is that usually, not always, but usually people are looking to make the switch from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan because high costs are coming. Their health has worsened, they need surgeries, a chronic condition has arisen, and now they want the coverage of a supplement plan. Well, if the first 5 scenarios don't apply, odds are not great. Remember that supplement plans are run by private insurance companies as well, and they are not charity. Most are for profit with these supplement plans, and so they will not take on unnecessary risk if they don't have to. If the companies have not been collecting premiums for all of this time, and then they only take on people that have high cost challenges, the insurance company would go out of business. So if you are looking to switch from an Advantage plan to a supplement plan because you have been diagnosed with some high cost condition, it could be very difficult or impossible to make that switch. You now know more about switching from Advantage to supplement plans than you probably wanted to, but this is important to understand when you are making your Medicare decisions. Are you going to get locked into a plan that you can't get out of? Remember that with Advantage plans, you can always switch from one Advantage plan to another each year during the annual enrollment period that runs from October 15th through December 7th every single year. So you aren't locked into that specific Advantage plan for the rest of your life. You can also switch from a supplement plan to an Advantage plan during the same window. I think that one of the things that doesn't get mentioned enough with supplement plans is that people can get locked into these as well. Supplement plan premiums increase almost every year and can increase twice a year. We've heard of people paying $500, $600, I've even heard up to $1,100 per month for their supplement plan. And in most states, again, there's about a dozen exceptions, but in most states, you can't switch from a Plan F to a Plan G without medical questions. And these people get trapped in these high premium plans where they have to either stay where they're at with those high premiums or switch to an Advantage plan because they can't afford those premiums. But the Advantage plan doesn't necessarily give them the coverage that they need either. So I have said this in pretty much every video that we've ever made on this channel, please work with an agent on this decision. This whole complicated Medicare maze is so much easier when you work with a licensed agent who can guide you through these decisions. It never costs you anything to use an agent. Even if it's not us, please use an agent. If you found this helpful, would you give it a like? That's all I got for this one. Feel free to reach out with any questions that you may have. And as always, I appreciate you and thank you for watching.
Yeah.